Hey, over on YouTube. Gonna wait for the stream to kick in on Facebook and then we'll get going. Moving my fan over here. A little stuffy out in the office today, a little humid outside, as is the way in Florida. All right, and good afternoon to everybody. How are you doing today? It's good to see everyone. I hope you had a restful and quiet weekend, and to all the fellow dads out there, I hope you had an absolutely fantastic Father's Day. Mine was great. Family treated me to a catered lunch from our favorite Tex-Mex restaurant, as has become tradition around these parts. And I got some pretty spiffy gifts that I'm going to show off for you. So I guess this is a mail call Monday. Male in this case, M-A-L-E, not M-A-I-L. And in that spirit, I got a mug. Dad Joke Pro on both sides. I was told I could use this as a drinking mug just to display, or as a paintbrush, paint water mug, but you know what? I'm going to be drinking out of this bad boy. I'm not a coffee drinker, but there's lots of other beverages I can put in the Dad Joke Pro mug. So I look forward to that. So big thanks to my lovely family. Hello, Chris, on YouTube comments. Hello, hello. Good to see you. The other thing, though, was, and this just kicks ass. I gotta lean forward and pick this up. Hang on a second. Be careful. This is very lightweight ceramic in places. I got my own R2 unit. Look at that. This is actually, this is very cool. This is a Scentsy scent thingamajig. What it is you put these bars of scented wax in here, and then there's like a 60-watt light bulb in the bottom that heats it up, turns it molten. And then you just put the lid back on, this guy right here. You just set that on, and you get a nice lovely scent. I did not get any scents with it, at least I don't think. I'll have to check. The coolness factor is in that it's an R2 unit. As far as I know, it doesn't make sounds, c'est la vie, but I do think it's super cool. And if things get a little too funky out here in the office, I can always throw a little something in there, a little cinnamon or something like that, maybe some apple pie scent. You know, I like having a winter scent. Like during the summer, too much like sweet smell in the air can be kind of cloying, but when things start to cool down for fall, I just sort of like that. So I got this guy. I'm gonna have to figure out a good place for him though. He's got to sit on a surface that isn't flammable, and he can't be plugged into extension cords or anything like that. Well, the recommendation is that you not do that. And every plug in this room has computers or lighting or audio-visual gear, so I'll have to figure out where to plug him, but I absolutely love the R2D2 Scentsy thing. So, and the mug, again, check that out. Is that showing up on camera? Dad Joke Pro. So those were my Father's Day gifts from the family, and they're absolutely wonderful. So again, I wish happy post Father's Day. And if you're not a dad yourself, well, I hope you got time to spend with your pop. So yeah, that was yesterday. Now, on Friday, if you missed it, I highly, highly recommend you go back and watch Friday's shows. Shows, plural, that's right. We had a guest midday, Kevin Wood, a good buddy of mine, a longtime friend of mine, stopped by and laid out some good practical DMing tips. We talked a lot about that. Had some good questions, some good feedback from the audience on how to deal with unruly players and so on. And boy, Kevin and I absolutely have had to deal with the unruliest of players. And then at 5 o'clock, not 4 as I originally planned, but at 5 o'clock, Ty Beard was in studio. Well, he wasn't in studio. He was in video conference with us, and it was a lot of fun. I love having Ty on, and just like Kevin, I'm going to have Ty back again more frequently. Because Ty's not just a brilliant lawyer, Ty is also a game designer and a gamer. Which, he's from Tyler, Texas, and he was very much had to be in the closet or on the gaming front, not at the gaming front, on the gaming front, until he didn't, and now I think he's Big Chief gives no fucks when it comes to gaming. So it was very nice to talk to him. And one of the things we talked to him about, and again, not just for click-throughs, but I really, really, really highly recommend that you go watch the video if you have questions about the OGL. And if you missed the live stream, but you do have questions, watch the stream again. Put your questions in, and if you have a question about something that here I specifically said, just put a stamp on it. Like, Bill, 4352, you said this. I have a question about that. At 9327, Ty said this. I have a question about it. Phrasing, yeah. So put a comment in the comments section, put a timestamp on it, and if it's for me, I will do my best to answer it in the context. And if it's for Ty, I will forward it to him, and he will either give me an answer or we'll address it the next time he comes back on the stream. But I want to do more gaming oriented streams because, I mean, my gosh, there's enough controversy in the world that Ty has to deal with in the real world and things that matter than to drag that over and color his gaming experience with it. Similarly says phrasing. Are we still doing phrasing? So going down the list, hello Chris, Passerby, Cerulean, Semuli, hello Katie, and hello to whoever's watching over on YouTube. If you want to say hi in the comment section on YouTube, that would be awesome. So speaking of guests, one thing I did get accomplished yesterday in having some dad time to myself is I shot some bumpers for the live streams that I did with guests last spring and actually through until just a few months ago, before I started streaming to both YouTube and Facebook. So I'm getting ready to start putting those videos up onto YouTube. I wanted to put them on last night, but by the time I was done shooting the bumper, I was like, I don't really have time to edit this. I'm a little brain fried. So once I get those all edited together, I'm going to start uploading them. One thing I can tell you is the first guest that I ever had on was Paul Stormberg, who is an outstanding guy, a decent guy. I've had Jim Ward on a few times. The artist Darlene, who's responsible for some absolutely gorgeous pieces of art in Dungeons and Dragons. I've had her on. I've had Tracy Lesh on many times. Tracy is a friend of the show. Alan Hammock, Rob Schwalb. I talked to John Popson from Effing Cool Miniatures. Although I wonder, I'll have to go back and look, but I can't remember if my interview with John was also streamed on YouTube. So if it was, then I'll I'll I won't upload that one because it's already here to see. But the point is, I'm gonna have a whole raft of stuff, likely a lot of you folks haven't seen, that I will make available to folks very soon. It's coming very soon. Hopefully this week, maybe even tonight. Although I have to get ready for tonight's first edition AD&D game, my Monday night game. And speaking of Monday night, one of my players won't be there. Dan McDougal will not be there. Dan got married. Posted up some photos of the nuptials on Facebook, and it was absolutely lovely to see. Many, many, many happy years to you and your lovely bride, Maureen. Congratulations to you both. So, Dan is off gallivanting about. I will permit this. I will allow Etho to be healthy and happy and safe. I won't just arbitrarily kill your character. Rich Lopez over on Facebook. Hello, Rich Lopez. It's good to see you. Mark Corey. Hello, Mark on YouTube. Good to see you. Katie. Hi. How are you? We're just doing the live stream. Everything's happening. So anyway, and Rich, this is your official chops busting about intro music, just FYI. But anyway, so that's all what's been going on. Now let's talk about what's happening right now. I've gotten a lot of links. People have sent me messages on Facebook. Oh, wait, no, you know what? Before I jump into that, my viewership has, relative to what it was, exploded over the last couple of weeks. I mean, we went from like the low 630s to the middle 700 teens, like that. So if you're coming from Facebook, or rather if you're coming from Reddit, or if you're coming from Facebook, or if you are a fan of Jayashiro Finney's, who's joined us, or if you're one of the folks who looked at some pithy comments I made on YouTube and said, I'm going to subscribe to your channel, welcome and thank you for subscribing. This is old school RPG content. It's just the thing I do. So thanks for signing up, and I hope you stick around. I think you'll find this is a lot of fun. But anyway, to move on to new business. So I've gotten a lot of messages, and I've actually seen this like wash up on the shore in places that I didn't expect it to. There's a YouTube channel called Clownfish TV. It's sort of a skewed pop culture viewing thing. Now, what's interesting is both of the people who run Clownfish TV will straight up tell you that they're Democrat voting liberals, and they think that the push for ideological purity in geek fronts is too much. So it's not like some alt-right conservative think tank YouTube channel. But even they covered this topic I'm about to mention. And that is that there's a company called TSR that has once again formed with the intent of putting out role-playing games and game supplements. Oh yeah, Katie, I just finished discussing. I have a manuscript of Gary Gygax's unpublished second edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons that he wrote before he left TSR, but you missed it, so sorry. I'm just kidding, you didn't miss anything. But Yeah, so this new TSR. And people have asked me, what's your take on it? What do you think about this new TSR? And the answer is that I'm going to give a very guarded, I don't know. Now, I've made this analogy before, and I'll make it again. If you're like me, you're 6'4" and you're named Bill. But if you're like me in other ways, you'll know that once upon a time back in the 1970s and 80s and into a little bit of the 90s, there was a computer company called Commodore. And Commodore made a series of home computers. They started out with the PET 2001, which was a big hit because it was an all-in-one unit with monitor, tape drive for loading and saving programs built into the console. The keyboard was awful. I can't even begin to go into how just terabad the keyboard was. But then they fixed that and addressed some other design issues with additional revisions, like the PET 2032, I think it was called. And then they released the VIC 20, and then the the Commodore 64, of course, which was the best-selling home computer of all time, 22 million units. And it just left Apple in the dust. I'm sorry, Steve Wozniak can bitch about the design of the C64 till he's blue in the mouth. The fact of the matter is, Commodore was eating Apple's lunch back in the 90s, or back in the 80s. And it wasn't until the Macintosh came along that Apple got out of Commodore's shadow. But Commodore roared through the late 70s all the way to the end of the 1980s. They were still producing Commodore 64s for European sale. Now, this is a 1 megahertz computer, when computers with faster system buses and more memory and more features were being produced in the 90s, when the world was shifting PC. But Commodore, right? Well, they went bankrupt in 1994, and I could do an entire couple of dozen live streams on why that happened. But this is not a tech YouTube channel. This is a geek gaming news channel. But when you make something that's that iconic, people want to sell on vintage. They want to sell on nostalgia. And it was just a little bit after rigor mortis set in that Commodore, the brand, the trademarks, started getting swapped around like Pokemon cards. And where things began to settle out was a few different companies owned various different trademarks of Commodore. And there have been Commodore branded laptops, Commodore branded Android tablets, Commodore branded mobile phones. One guy down in Miami, because like all of the computers in his office, and he had like a cable TV franchise down in South Florida. And he liked the look and the completeness and the fact that everything you needed for a Commodore was right there, built into it. Didn't require expansion cards to do upper and lower case and multiple color and make sound and so on and etc. So he just bought a bunch of Commodore 64s and word processing and spreadsheet applications. And because they plugged into TVs, they could be used to generate video titles and so on and etc. And so he loved it. He went out and found the molds, like the actual injection molds for the Commodore 64 case, and started stamping out cases for the Commodore 64 that you could put mini ITX motherboards in, and said, "I'm the new Commodore." Um, but that guy and the people slapping the little C logo, they call it the chicken head logo. It looks like a stylized C with an equal sign sticking out next to it in red and blue. None of those companies were located in Westchester, Pennsylvania. None of them employed Dave Haney or Dale Luck or Jim Butterfield or the Tramiels, and these are engineers and executives from Commodore. One reason Commodore was so hugely successful is they were vertically integrated. That is, they did their design, beta testing, prototyping, fabrication, packaging, and wholesales from one factory in the United States and one factory in Europe. So none of the new companies that came along had done anything but bought the trademarks and said, hey, we're Commodore now. You remember Commodore? You want to buy a Commodore Android phone? And they were just shitbox Chinese Android phones. Or tablets, or just shake and bake laptops with Core 2 Duos or first gen iCore CPUs. Okay, but hey, it's a Commodore, right? I kind of feel like this new TSR is kind of the same way. Now, kind of, not completely. They do have Larry Elmore doing art. They do have Jim Ward working on Giant Lands, and Merle Rasmussen has created a brand new Top Secret, if you played Top Secret back in the day. But it's not the same TS. It is not. I'm not trying to be insulting. Like, if you're associated with them, or you're enthusiastic about it, or you like them, they're not the TSR of Don Kay and Gary Gygax. They're not even the TSR of Brian and Kevin Bloom. I guess Ernie Gygax has been brought on in some capacity there. I know that he's had a project that he and Ben Poir have been working on since forever. Some Mega Dungeon that Ernie worked on. But there's no, I'm not going to say there's no, but I feel like the association is slim at best. And I don't want to say this because I want to tear them down. But the reality is, they're not going to get Dungeons and Dragons back from Hazards, okay? Hazards, that is Hasbro Wizards, they're never going to, I mean, the best thing that this new TSR could do, not the best thing, the most they could do, is to produce open gaming license products that have a look and feel of old school D&D modules and supplements, kind of like what I was doing 20 years ago, back before there was an OSR. I was kind of on the I wouldn't even say I was on the crest of that wave. I generated that wave. I was the first guy to go out there and say, I'm going to publish stuff that looks like classic TSR modules. So maybe, just maybe, this new TSR can go that route. Now, you might ask me, well, what about Giant Lands? Or why don't you give this a chance? Or it's not like Commodore. They do have some of the original creators. And I get that. I get that. But TSR was, and I think Russell Flowers in the comments over on YouTube says it best, it was lightning in a bottle. And I just I just don't know. All right, I just don't know. If D&D had lain fallow from 1999, let's say TSR goes bust in 1999, there is no Wizards of the Coast to pick this stuff up. You know, D&D is just second edition and AD&D and original D&D and various flavors of basic, and it just kind of drifts aimlessly. If these guys came in and said, we're going to gather as much of this stuff together as we can and start republishing it, and also we've got Jim Ward, Larry Elmore, Merle Rasmussen, and it's going to be headed up by Ernie Gygax, I would feel like it was something that was a continuation. But as much as I don't like Wizards of the Coast, and I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. I mean, when I call them hazards, it's not just because it's a clever portmanteau. All right. I regard them with as much caution as I regard Games Workshop. And I think Games Workshop has been a net detriment to the wargaming hobby. I do. I'm sorry. I just feel like I don't know. So to the people reacting on the web, and it's a lot of videos and comments from people who and I hate to put on my old man hat, but they're way younger than me. All right, they have no recollection. This would be like, I don't know. This is like three musicians getting together and getting Jason Bonham and saying, we're the new Led Zeppelin. We are Led Zeppelin. Or not even we're the new Led Zeppelin. We are Led Zeppelin. We're the same Led Zeppelin that performed back in the 1970s that broke up in the 80s. We're back together. And I don't feel like that's the case. All right. I mean, I wish them luck, but the thing is, a lot of geek media, again, Clownfish TV, and I'm not slagging Clownfish TV for this, their focus is not tabletop role-playing games. Their focus is comics and movies, and that sort of thing. And they'll feature stuff, and I'm just like, I had no idea that was going on. That is fascinating. And I'll watch their videos and pause them and follow links that they've linked to or things that they've mentioned and come back. They're awesome. But they were talking about this like, hey, the band's back together, guys. I don't feel like it is. I will hold any negative opinions until, I don't know. But I just don't feel like this is TSR. This is a company called TSR. It's absolutely a company called TSR. But you know, and I'll give them their due. That's just my take on it, guys. I'm gonna answer some questions over on YouTube, and if anybody over on Facebook's got any comments, questions, criticisms, negative, nasty remarks, you can come in and make those over there too. I do want to mention something about Facebook. Facebook is changing how their live video system works. I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep streaming to Facebook. I will keep doing it as long as possible. But if one day I just stop linking to videos on Facebook, or rather if I stop live streaming on Facebook and am only linking on Facebook, that's why, because they're changing how you live stream on Facebook now. So anyway, Chris says it's great that they have Top Secret, but that was never a huge draw for TSR. If Ben would finally finish that module Ernie wrote, it would be a good second step. I get it for sure. Same. I have a free RPG day sample of it, and it's good. It's on my gaming shelf over there. Maybe I'll do a review of it one day. That might be a little bit more salient now. Let's see. Passerby says, I saw SLC Punk this weekend. It reminded me of films like Trainspotting and Pump Up the Volume. Stranger Things seemed like it ripped off the final scene with D&D. Little bit, maybe. For those of you who don't know, SLC Punk is a movie about punk rock music in America in the late 70s and early 80s and how it impinges on the life of the two main characters. It's a dramedy kind of thing, done in almost Modern Family or The Office sort of documentary style. Less like that, more of a Wonder Years sort of thing, where we're narrated by the main character as he walks us through what took him from being a gawky basement nerd to this Liberty Spike having drunk and drug abusing punk. But part of what launches them out of the basement, literally the basement dwelling where they play Dungeons and Dragons, is an argument over whether or not D&D is cool and the decision that it's not. But it goes firmly into my index card file of movies that positively portrayed actual Dungeons and Dragons, not just mentioned role-playing games or came up with like mazes and monsters or something like that. They actually refer to Dungeons and Dragons in it. So SLC Punk. Let's see. Simile says, Clownfish got too outrage happy. I had to unsubscribe from them and a ton of others. Too much of my time went into that terrible cycle. Yeah, there's a lot of people that I dropped that went from, I'm going to talk about events and news in tabletop gaming or nerd culture to, this makes me mad. For me, Clownfish TV hasn't gotten there yet, but I totally respect it if you've hit that moment. There's some new guys that I found. If you know what you're getting when you get into it, it's fine. I think like Just Some Guy, his stuff's really good. I like Just Some Guy quite a bit, and his videos are very short, and he's very passionate about Lord of the Rings. You have this young adult, and I mean mid-20s. That's young adult to me. I know that's all grown up to a bunch of you guys. That's young adult to me. A guy from Chicago who can curse at people in Elvish and has done so. His videos in defense of the Lord of the Rings and despairing about what Amazon is about to do to them. They're really primo stuff. Just Some Guy. Check him out. Cerulean says it's very much a ship of Thesis. It is. That is absolutely a great analogy, and I'm going to come back to that. Russell says, didn't Troll Lords or someone pick up working on that, or at least helping Hobby Shop Dungeon? I think so. I'll have to go back and check. Maybe one day I'll talk to Ben Um, hell, maybe he'll want to come on and just kind of see where it sits. Um, Simile says the smaller channels are almost always the best. Yeah, there's like I'm the same way. Like, in addition to role playing game stuff, I'm very into computers. Uh, oh, Chuck Gumbo, we did pick up the tomb. Thank you. Chuck's over on Facebook. Chuck, if you wanna, well, there we have it, folks. A live update from Troll Lord Games. They did pick up Tomb, and it's almost done. So there we go. So I got a couple of people over on Facebook. I got people on YouTube, but I got Chuck stepping up saying Memorial Tomb is almost done, guys. So Kickstarter wise, can you elaborate on what you mean by Kickstarter wise, Chuck? For me, I mean, I don't hobla. But anyway, I was saying about tech, like, to me, like, what you can wring out of an older system is a lot more entertaining than, I'm a tech YouTuber and I make $20 million a year with my videos, just my YouTube channel alone. So I can go buy the stuff that you can't and then drop it on the floor of my lab and bray like a fucking mule that I just broke a $10,000 piece of gear. And 7.5 million people still watch the video and come back the next day to watch me do something equally stupid. I mean, I'm not talking about any one tech YouTuber, highness, excuse me, but lots of them do it, and I've unsubscribed from them. Just, I'm sick of that shit. It's not informative. It's like, if you hit a point where you're just making content, like, I bet you if I said I'm gonna soak my OD&D set in gasoline and set it on fire, I bet you I could probably get like a couple of hundred people in the live streams. I'm not gonna do that ever, just because A, clickbaits, and B, it would be a terrible, stupid thing to do. But I bet I could get the views to do it. I bet the video would go viral or whatever. But that would have been the pinnacle of, I've run out of anything informative or decent or good or entertaining to say. That would be just the absolute abyss of non-content to do stuff like that, and I'm never going to do it. Also, like, if I hit the lottery tomorrow, or if I suddenly like had 20 million people subscribe to my channel, and YouTube monetized me up the butt and I was making a few grand per, I wouldn't just sit here saying, oh look, here's something I bought today, here's a pastel copy of Lost Tamacon, I have this, you don't, yay for me. Yeah, Cerulean, it's never going to happen, so you don't have to worry about that. Chat is moving along nicely, Paul, and hello, Paul. But there are YouTubers out there who literally, my subscription doesn't matter the least to them. My comments don't matter the least to them. And I hit my limit on one of the tech channels that I watch on YouTube today, and I'm not going to say it, because I'm not going to say the name of the guy, not because I don't want him to have views or anything like that, but just because I'm not here to be like negative. But he was like, I'm gonna do a react video of watching Computer Chronicles from 2000. Lol, old games. Lol, look at old games. Lol. Wow, requires 5 megs of hard drive space. Lol. Just that is like dragging a dental pick across my gums. That's not fucking content. And this guy used to do like PC refreshes and stuff. Like, oh, my neighbor was telling me he needed a new PC. So, or my neighbor wanted me to see if I could upgrade his PC for him. So I'm going to surprise him. And he'll take like this guy's old, like horrible Hewlett Packard desktop, take all the parts out, take a rotozip and cut out all the shelves and everything in there for hard drives, and then put like an i7 in there with a couple of SSDs and everything. And here's your upgraded computer system back. And it was decent stuff. But just like fucking React videos, man, really? So, like Samuli with Clownfish being too outrage happy, I get it. I totally get it. Just there's a point at which you want to go find some guy who has like maybe a couple of thousand subs, and he's genuinely talking about, yo, I went to the recycling center and found an i7 laptop. 3rd gen i7 laptop. Let's see if it works. Oh my God, it works. I put in a single 2 gig DIMM and it boots up. Let's see what we can do. Here it is. It's working. You can find this sort of thing. He cleans it up and gets it working again. So that has a lot more appeal to me than lol, look at old computers, lol, does. Or oopsie, I accidentally the $20,000 computer part. Dee. So let's get back to role-playing games though, not what YouTube channels I watch, because Chuck over on Facebook has this to say. So I think it was last week, Steve pushed out an update regarding the fulfillment of the Kickstarter. The maps and box redo are all at the printers now. As soon as they arrive here, we'll begin shipping. As far as publishing it after the Kickstarter, I do not know where we sit with that with Ben and Ernie, but I assume we have been publishing most of the Gygax stuff for a long time now, but you never know how that goes, though. You never know. Yes, I do know how that goes. I know exactly how that goes. For those of you who may be new to either of my channels, and thank you, by the way, Chuck. Chuck, do you mind if I copy and paste what you just said into the YouTube comments? And if you would prefer that I not do that, would you consider hopping over to YouTube and copying and pasting that? Anyway, so for those of you who are new to either the Facebook streams or the YouTube streams, or you just don't know me and my history, back in the early 2000s, I volunteered to work with Gary Gygax. And when I tell people, yeah, I worked with Gary Gygax, this is the period I'm talking about. But I volunteered to work with Gary Gygax. So did a number of other authors. It wasn't just like me by myself. And we worked on Gary's re-envisioned Greyhawk called Yigsburg now, because Greyhawk belongs to Hazards. And all of the city details, all of the zones and districts in the cities and outlying areas, we worked on while Gary worked on Castle Greyhawk. And when Gary passed away, all of our projects were canceled because Gail Gygax didn't want to continue working with Trollord Games. So the 5 city modules that I had and that I was working on, as well as 2 legendary adventure modules, the Maledict and the Key of Sand, all that stuff was scuppered. All that went away. Hundreds of thousands of words just gone. And that includes the Teeth of the Barkish Nor. Now, Teeth of the Barkish Nor could have been published, but Frank Mentzer intervened and interfered in its release, and lied to Gary about my writing and what I had done. So if you wish you could have a magnificent Gary Gygax mega dungeon and outdoor like pocket plane adventure, ostensibly set in a pocket dimension reach through Castle Greyhawk, and you sorely regret not having it, there's your reason why. It lays solely at the feet of Frank Mincer. So, okay, so I'm going to copy and paste Chuck's statements here. I may have to do this in pieces because I'm not sure how many characters that is. So there's the first paragraph. And here's the second paragraph. That's one thing about Facebook is you can make comments. You can make long comments on Facebook chat, but YouTube limits you to 200 characters in chat, which is nice because it stops people from like copy pasting the Lord of the Rings and like blowing out everyone else's comments. And I'll put the last part. So right there, again, to reiterate, this is from Chuck Cumbo. Is it Cumbo or Kumbao? Am I saying it right, Chuck? I don't want to get it wrong, and I don't want to seem like I'm trying to be insulting. So if that's not how it's pronounced, then please let me know. Chuck C over on Facebook says, so I think it was last week, Steve pushed out an update regarding the fulfillment of the Kickstarter. The maps and box redo are all at the printers now. As soon as they arrive here, we'll begin shipping. As far as publishing it after the Kickstarter, I do not know where we sit with that with Ben and Ernie. But I assume we have been publishing most of the Gygax stuff for a long time, but you know how that goes, though you never know. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. But this is Ernie. None of this stuff is Gary. This is like Ernie's inspiration, Ben's perspiration, and Trollord Games publication. So I would imagine that certain individuals who have had a lot of undue influence over what of Gary's gets published is not able to get her claws in. Although by all accounts, that's never stopped her from sending out cease and desist and everything else. And to be honest, I'm kind of surprised still to this day that Lost Crypt got published. And that's another thing. I was mentioning the lament of Teeth of the Barkesh Noor. If you are interested in having a piece of that, the Teeth of the Barkesh Noor, the Lost Crypt is a dungeon section of Teeth of the Barkesh Noor that I wrote, that Gary approved, that I was able to detach because he didn't write any of the sections in there, and I didn't refer to anything he wrote except anecdotally in the introduction. You can get that from Frog God Games, and I will link to it in both chats. Let me just find that real quick. You know, someone had asked me, I was looking on here we go. So there's the Lost Crypt. The Lost Crypt. And I'll link to it in the Facebook chat. Someone was asking about this was ages ago, like, oh, where's a link to your published stuff so we can buy it? And it occurred to me I hadn't really I hadn't really discussed it lately. So there's the Lost Crypt, at least. Let's see. Here's the Temple of the Sun. Nice little D&D dungeon crawl. Now, the Temple of the Sun is actually a module, a homegrown module. When I said earlier that I was out there on the crest of the wave, generating the wave that would become the OSR, this is one of the modules that I wrote. I set it in the world of Greyhawk. I copied the TSR style, visual style, because that's most appealing to me. You know, their typeface, their spacing, and everything inside. I did have someone produce some fantastic cover art for me for that module. There's new cover art that's been produced. Hey, Randy Buckness, I see you over there. Hello to you, sir. So if you want a 5e / Osric, I'm sorry, no, an Osric / Castles and Crusades version of Temple of the Sun, you can purchase it there from Hellebard Games. Regarding, they may have some print copies in stock. You'll have to talk to them about that, because otherwise it's just available as a print on demand or PDF title. That is, you would be able to get it print on demand by sending it to Lulu. Now, as far as the Lost Crypt goes, I actually have physical copies of the Lost Crypt available for sale. If you want to buy a copy of the Lost Crypt, I will sell you a copy, and it is autographed by myself and one of the artists, Tracy Lesh, who is not only just the artist on it, but Tracy is a veteran of TSR from back in the day. Tracy was one of the people who was there at the founding of TSR. He is responsible for this awesome painting behind me, this one right here, which, in case you're curious, because people do ask about that from time to time, that particular piece is unreleased artwork from Dungeons and Dragons. That is a piece that was done for Dungeons and Dragons back in the day that was that went unreleased. So that is a rarity. Now this is a vinyl, or I'm sorry, this is a canvas print. I don't have the original, and I wouldn't ask Tracy for the original. He and his wife gifted that to me, a print that they had made of it, and it's probably one of my favorite things that I've got over here on the Wall of Fame. I love it to pieces. Chuck says, we love Dawn's stuff. I have that one. Well done, Bill. Well, thank you, Chuck. I hope you guys like the adventure a lot. I have other adventures out there. I have an entire series of modules set in the Howling Hills in Greyhawk. Into the Howling Hills. Was it Into the Howling Hills, Lords of the Howling Hills, and Tombs of the Howling Hills. And I have two kind of solo game master to player, very simple. They're just meant as exercises for one player and one game master to sit and learn. They're barely pamphlet sized things. I've got them hosted somewhere. I'll have to find them and link to them sometime. Yeah, that is an amazing picture, and Tracy is one of those guys that, like, I can't figure out why old school RPG companies, like, aren't beating down his door. Because you want to talk about a pioneer of Dungeons and Dragons art. Tracy Lesh created the visual image of the Mind Flayer. The Mind Flayer. The friggin' Mind Flayer. Gary said, I want it to look like this. Tracy drew it for him and showed it to him, and Gary was like, that's it. So, yeah. I honestly, I don't know why Tracy doesn't have like a waiting list as long as my arm of people wanting classic RPG art or RPG art for their nouveau classic or neoclassic projects. I'm looking at you guys over at TLG, Chuck. Rare for your daughter, Chuck. And this piece here. Yeah, I'm gonna have to find the folio of prints that Tracy gave to me to show off one of these days. I need to get frames for some of the other stuff that he did. Like Tracy did the art in the original Boot Hill when Boot Hill was published like OD&D booklet style. He and his dad was a huge fan of westerns, Louis L'Amour, Max Brand, Zane Grey, that sort of thing, and western movies. And so he and his dad, who was a draftsman, they both worked on the art for Boot Hill together. Tracy is the original artist of Tomb of Horrors. You should definitely, if you don't have a copy of Dungeons and Dragons Art and Arcana, the deluxe set, buy it, because some of the, like, you can buy like all these coffee table D&D books. Art and Arcana is actually, the deluxe box set is actually a useful gaming tool because it's got easily readable maps in it, but it also contains the original Tomb of Horrors, and it has the Tomb of Rahotep, which was the inspiration for the Tomb of Horrors, written by Alan Lucian. So I do recommend it because you get to see Tracy's art. So yeah, you should absolutely go seek out Tracy and his art and check it out. I'm just lucky enough that he lives just up the highway from me. When I found out that he lived in Central Florida, I reached out to Tracy and said, okay, passerby, hang on a second, hang on. This week is Amazon Whatchamadoojer week, when they like mad sales and stuff, but I think it's just a day. Prime Day, that's it. If today isn't Prime Day, then do it tomorrow, because you might be able to get the deluxe set for like half off. And that's worth the price of admission. Was Tracy in the D&D art documentary The Eye of the Beholder? They had interviews with a ton of old school artists, but I don't recall if he was in it. I don't think so. I don't think Tracy was in The Eye of the Beholder. You know what? We'll have to ask him the next time he's on. That is something else I was going to mention. Tracy is unwell right now. He's over your normal, quote-unquote, physical illnesses, but he is undergoing cancer treatments currently. He fought it off once, and we're going to pray that he is able to fight it off again. Otherwise, I would have had Tracy on again a lot sooner, but I remember my father and his bouts with cancer, and when you're on those treatments, they kind of lay you out. Passerby says it is not the deluxe box set. See if you can get the deluxe. If the deluxe box set, Passerby, won't break your bank, get it. But yeah, that's definitely a thing. So big shout out to Randy Buckness over on Facebook. Hello. I'm going to put you on the spot, Randy, since you're my lone audience member over on Facebook, and I want you to type up something fun you remember about Dungeons and Dragons. We'll wait. It is Prime Day. It is Prime Day. So you know what? Let's go over there. Let's go over to Amazon while Randy types up fun D&D experiences he remembers. I'll tell you guys about Randy too. Randy was a coworker of mine, really my supervisor. I say a coworker, like, you know, we were on the same level. Randy was a system admin god, probably still is. I'm not sure what you're doing these days, Randy, but I think it's still the same stuff. Okay, right here. So I hate pimping out stuff from Amazon. I would prefer you buy it locally, but this is a great price. Oh boy, is that gonna? Nah, that's not gonna work. Here, let me cut off the HTTP www. That's perfect. Okay. So if you copy that link, you can go to Amazon, $64.99, but you get the Tracy Lesh illustrated Tomb of Horrors. It's worth it. Get it. Buy it. I would prefer you buy it locally, but yeah. And I've linked to it there on Facebook also. You know what? Let me see if I can get an actual active link rather than that. Ow. Popped my neck. So it linked fine on Facebook. And I'll try it again over on YouTube. There's a shorter link. You should yeah, you can just click that link now that I put on YouTube and follow that. Anyway, Randy was my boss over when I was working for a company called Star Systems here in Florida. And he was a great guy, fantastic dude. Still is. Didn't have anything to do with his bossing, but he was a great boss. Scuba diver, lived, ate, drank, and breathed computers. I didn't figure him for a gamer at all. But when I got this, I salvaged this near letter quality. It's like an HP LaserJet 3. And nobody wanted it in their office. So I salvaged it and I put it in my office. I was getting these beautiful, crispy, clear copies. And this was when Wizards of the Coast was just beginning to sell PDFs of D&D books. And I wanted to test the quality of it, so I grabbed a random page or two from some PDF products and I printed them out. And I thought, oh, those look kind of nice. And I pinned them up in my cube, my office. And Randy comes walking by one day and he stops. And he leans in and he says, "You a D&D player?" I was like, "Yeah." And he said, "Yeah, what level game do you run?" And I was like, "Oh, we just kind of started out. I think we were like third or fourth." And I said, you?" And he's like, yeah, we used to run pretty high level games. And dang it, I didn't follow up on it. Like, he was busy, I was busy. I just thought it was a cool thing. But Randy was a D&D player. So if you're listening, Randy, tell us your D&D story, even if it's after the live stream. I'd love to see it. So, but anyway, yeah, there's a couple of the things. Couple of questions. Okay, if I'm gonna buy it, it will be from a local Amazon or local shop. Buying from the U.S. will cost me at least $30 extra. Not sure where you are. Yeah. Support local businesses if you can. Do get it locally. That's the right thing to do. Cerulean says, does Florida have a high concentration of OD&D? There's like a Central Florida Grognard's. It's like Grognard Society or something, old school gaming society, and they're primarily OD&D, AD&D, and I think some 2E. Uh, Everyone that I've met here in Central Florida that I've run original D&D for, whether they've only played new D&D, they've never played any D&D, they used to play AD&D either first or second back in the day, they love it. So some potential evangelists out there, some converts, um, buy physical, buy local, absolutely. Buy your books locally, pay with cash. That's my take on it. So yeah, Cerulean, I think, I don't know about high concentration. I mean, it's probably higher in the Midwest than it is here. But I'll tell you an interesting thing, an interesting couple of things. The first ever Dungeons and Dragons fiction novel published was Quag Keep, published by Andre Norton. And she wrote it after Gary Gygax visited her and her sons, and they spent a weekend playing original Dungeons and Dragons. How is that relevant to your question? Andre Norton lived one suburb over in Maitland, Florida, which is where the company was that I worked with Randy. Serendipity. It all comes back around. Um, so Gary came down here to Central Florida and played OD&D with Andre Norton, and she wrote Quag Keep based on her gaming experiences with Gary, inspired by. So there's one connection. The other is that, God bless him, Rob Kuntz decided he was going to move to Florida, and this is maybe 6-8 years ago. He moved to Florida in September, and he moved to the coast where it's actually cooler, like Satellite Beach, which is on the coast and a little to the north. Yeah, you don't move to Florida in September, dude. You move here in the winter and you ease into it. You move down here in the summer and it's just, or even the spring, and it's a, words fail me. Look, I love Florida. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else other than Florida. I don't have to worry about parking on hills or driving up hills or tearing up a transmission going up and down hills. Hurricanes are a hassle, but otherwise I don't have to shovel snow. I can swim 10 out of 12 months of the year and just go to the pool, dive right in, and not be a part of the Polar Bear Society. But if you're not used to the heat down here, man, and you move here in September, you're going to move right back, which he did. He had an apartment down here for a couple of months and was like, I can't take this, and moved right back. Grog Talk, I think that might be the name in Florida. Maybe? You know what? Here, we have the internet. We have the power. Okay, so it's over here on Meetup, if you're interested. And that is AD&D First Edition Grognard's Guild, what we're about. This group is dedicated to the old school renaissance and to keeping First Edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons alive and well, and to reliving the golden age of role-playing. Many of the group's members played AD&D in the 1980s, some in the 1970s, but no experience with First Edition AD&D is necessary, or D&D at all, and players of all ages and experience are welcome. So there you go. And they have a little miniature convention that they do too. Well, no, they do a con. GrogCon, that's it. So you can check them out if you're interested. Let's see. You bring up an interesting question, Bill. What's the relationship between the popularity of OD&D in Central Florida to Florida Man? Look, goddamn it. The Florida Man meme. Okay, I'm going to tell you about this. I'm going to lay it down. And I'm laughing while I say this, so I'm not genuinely upset. But I'm going to tell you about the Florida Man meme, okay? Florida Man is a meme. It's not. Things in Florida, crimes in Florida committed by Florida Man are no weirder than anything that happens in any other state. Let me give you an example. If the cops in New Jersey arrest a guy, tase a guy who's running down the street naked, covered in ketchup, screaming obscenities, and chasing someone with a 2-foot-long purple dildo, and he's as high as a kite on bath salts, the public record will state that he was intoxicated and disorderly and guilty of public indecency. Period. End of story. The ketchup, the dildo, the bath salts, none of that gets mentioned. In Florida, because our press is so free and so open, we have what are called sunshine laws, which means every bit of the police record for an arrest is open to the press. So when somebody goes on the Drudge Report and submits a link to a crime story in Florida, it'll mention the ketchup, the dildo, the bath salts, the nudity, the screaming, and people are like, oh, there goes Florida Man. When the difference is that the exact same crime was committed on the same days in 2 different states. In New Jersey, it's intoxicated and disorderly assault and indecent exposure. In Florida, it's a guy hopped up in bath salts, smeared in ketchup, running down the street, chasing somebody while wielding a 2-foot-long purple dildo. We are no weirder than anywhere else in the country. There's a Florida man, but there's also a Georgia man, an Alabama man, a Tennessee man, a New York man. I promise you, there's just as much weirdness in Lower Manhattan as there is in all the state of Florida happening just today. So there you go. Fiona Wolf, Florida man. The Florida woman meme is gaining some traction because the swamp water here is affecting more brains. They can see when gators break into houses too and take out wine racks. So yeah. So anyway, the serious answer to your question, Chris, the relationship between the popularity of OD&D to Florida Man. If Florida Man were real, I don't think Florida Man would grab your OD&D books and shred them into rolling papers and smoke Jimson weed with your OD. Florida Man is not a gamer. Fiona Wolf, or as my brain wants to call her handle, Finna Wolf. Hey, I'm Finna Wolf, man. But yeah, so Florida Man's not a gamer, and Florida Man's not a thing. Alaska Man, Nebraska Man, California Man. You want to talk about crazy? I mean, people poop on the streets in California, like in front of cops. And the last time I checked, Florida didn't have laws that made it legal to steal up to $950 worth of merchandise. That's actually legal in San Francisco. You want to walk into a store and grab a TV and walk right out without it? If it doesn't cost more than $950, they can't do anything to you. So You know, talk to me about Florida Man. You say X-Files theme, Fiona, about Florida beings. I say Ace of Spades by Motorhead. Anyway, my goodness, we've wandered far afield today. To bring all this back around to TSR, the new TSR, not TSR, the TSR we grew up with, TSR. Oh, I can only steal up to 949. My mistake, Chris. I'm sorry. 940. So you can only steal a 3.9K TV, not a 4K TV. And the bags of items that are stolen, yeah. I saw the Florida Man for D&D, Katie. That was funny. Preferred mount, alligator. I say, though, they missed a trick. Preferred mount is golf cart. Enemy is alligator. Also, ally is alligator. Is this new TSR the TSR? Someone upstream mentioned the Ship of Theseus. And if you're not familiar with the Ship of Theseus, it's the sailor Theseus brings his ship into port and brings it to a shipwright and says, the seawater has damaged my ship. And so over time, every time he brings it, the shipmaker takes boards off of his ship and adds new boards in their place. Eventually, he has taken all the wood out of Theseus' ship and replaced it with new wood. He looks at the wood that made up Theseus' old ship and cleans it up and sands it and seals it and builds a new ship out of it. Which is the Ship of Theseus? Is it the ship that Theseus himself is selling, or is it the new ship that the shipwright built from the wood of Theseus' ship? Which is the real TSR? Is it the TSR that sailed on long ago, or is it this new TSR that's made of bits and pieces of the old TSR? So that's a question that I think ultimately the consumers will answer. I'm still very on the fence. I would love to have some folks from back in the day on the show, particularly if they're involved with this, to talk to about that, but I can't say. I can't say right now. So tomorrow we will be doing the roundup of fun events that went on in the upcoming AD&D game tonight. I like to do a recap. And we'll find something else to bitch and gripe about. I know we will. I want to thank everybody who stopped by today. I think we broke a record today of folks on the stream. I think at one point we had 11 concurrent viewers. Them's pretty good numbers for this here vicinity. I especially want to thank Chuck Cumbo for stopping by and giving us the straight dope on where the Memorial Tomb project from the Hobby Shop Dungeon is. That it is in fact Troller Games who are getting it together to publish it. And we'll watch eagerly to see if that project reaches retail. I would certainly hope that it does. There's lots of interesting stuff that's been hinted about and discussed, features that will be in that, and I would certainly look forward to it. And we'll be back tomorrow at 12:30. AD&D recap, general hobby talk. I will reach out to Jim Ward and see if I can find out what the status of the Deities and Demigods manuscript sale is. I'm interested in hearing about that, and I know some of you guys are too. So thank you very much, everyone, for stopping by today. Thank you for the new viewers who've subscribed over the weekend. It's wonderful to have you. Stick around. I think if you like old school games and hobbies, you're You're going to enjoy this. Later on in the week, I think Thursday, because Wednesday, co-host Kyle will be here. We'll be doing another session of Kyle's groundbreaking action combat RPG Conflict. Thursday, we're going to do a deep dive on Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, and we're going to do character generation. We're going to make a character and take them through a career exit, possibly two, for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. And then Friday, who knows? I don't plan that far ahead, and neither should you. Have a wonderful day, guys. I love you all. I mean that. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.